Welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Visit legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com.
Welcome to this edition of Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm your guest host, Carl Jackson, sitting in for Jenna on this Wednesday evening. We've got a lot that we're going to talk to you about today, including the borders, including Biden's foreign policy, including the Cohen case or the hush money case. So much that we're going to get to: COVID, the elections. So make sure you stay tuned for the entire program. But guys, I'm going to start in a different place here tonight. Again, my name is Carl Jackson. You can find me online, all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Check out my podcast, The Carl Jackson Show, wherever you go to get your podcast. But I want to talk to you about something that I don't think we're hearing enough about in mainstream media, even in conservative media, if I could be so frank. And that is how Joe Biden's policies are inching us closer and closer. And when I say us, I mean the U.S., closer and closer to war. I figure it was a fitting topic to talk about, given Memorial Day is coming up next week, but Joe Biden has been an absolute disaster on the world stage. I think most people know it. The Democrat Party doesn't want us to talk about it, and that's exactly why I am talking about it. Everything from the Afghanistan debacle to Russia, Ukraine, watching Vladimir Putin sit on the border of Ukraine for months and months on end before he even says anything. About it, abandoning, as I see it, the way that I see it, abandoning our allies, Israel, and basically supporting Hamas, in my opinion. The Biden administration is a disaster, and it is going to pay, unfortunately, if we don't get this thing corrected in November of this year. I fear that we're going to pay the price. I fear that America is going to end up in war. Sometimes I fear it could be World War III. I hope that I'm wrong. But I just want to bring you, there was an article in Breitbart, and I want to bring you the 13 policies that Biden revised that Donald Trump had in place that actually made the world a safer place when Donald Trump was in place, and how Biden just completely wiped them out. Number one, he restored the funding to the UNRWA. That is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. So Trump signed the Taylor Force Act, all right, which prevents the U.S. from funding the Palestinian Authority, a terrorist organization, while it subsidizes terrorism. He also ended, Trump did, funding the UNRWA, which encourages anti-Israel and anti-Semitic radicalism. Biden went around that right away. He went around the Taylor Force Act, and he restored funds to the UNRWA. Number two, dropping sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. This is something that we don't talk about. As a matter of fact, Biden has now said that he's going to release another 1 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve just in time for the elections. But this is dangerous, guys. The fact that we're running away from fossil fuels is a threat. All right. And the Nord Stream 2 pipeline should remind us of that. So despite Biden and the Democrats and the media claiming for 4 years that Trump was a puppet when it claimed to Vladimir Putin, Biden was the one that reversed Trump's sanctions on Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He held a summit with Putin in Geneva. You might recall that, before meeting with Zelensky of Ukraine. And then Russia sensed his weakness, especially after the botched Afghanistan debacle. Number three, rejoining the corrupt UN Human Rights Council. This is something else that we did. So Trump pulled the U.S. out of the Human Rights Council, which had become little more than a vehicle for anti-Israel and anti-American resolutions, and a way for dictators in Russia and Iran and Cuba and China to sanitize their human rights records. And then Russia invaded Ukraine without the concern of the Human Rights Council. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Just sensing weakness from the Biden administration. All of these things are what Biden did to reverse Trump's foreign policy, essentially destroying America's foreign policy. Trump, as you recall, was really good at foreign policy. Got a little scary at times, but he was really good at foreign policy. Number four, Biden tried to restore the Iran nuclear deal, which wasn't a deal, by the way, even under Obama. But Obama negotiated a weak nuclear deal that gave Iran billions of dollars in cash, plus billions more in sanctions relief, and which would have allowed Iran to emerge as a nuclear power after roughly a decade. Trump put a stop to that. As soon as Biden got back in, he sent his envoy, Rob Malley, and suspended all of the things that Trump had put in place. And now Iran, you can see that they're powerful again, despite the fact that their leader, Ibrahim or Raisi, one of their leaders, just passed. Number 5, taking the Houthis off the terrorism list. As you guys know, the Houthis are proxy of Iran, all right? And then Biden took them off the terrorist list and tried to work deals with them. He immediately removed the Houthis again from the list and ostensibly facilitating humanitarian aid to Yemen. And now what do we see? We see the Houthis literally causing havoc in the Red Sea. It's absolutely insane, causing a shipping crisis. He ended Iran's sanctions. So Trump imposed a variety of sanctions against Iran, which Biden immediately reversed. Number 7, embracing a Palestinian state. This is absolutely dangerous because it tells these Islamic radicals that the United States is afraid of them. So Trump's peace plan for the Middle East succeeded because he didn't place the Palestinian state at the center of it. He offered the Palestinians or the Gazans $50 billion in investment if they would end their extremism and accept Israel's right to exist. When they refused, he moved on and he made the Abraham Accords with everyone around them. All right, stalling the Abraham Accords. That's number 8. Biden never formally opposed the Abraham Accords. All right, but there's been no progress since Trump left office. Number 9, revoking sanctions on the ICC, the International Criminal Courts, which has proved to be a joke under where they're literally going after Benjamin Netanyahu, courtesy of George Clooney's wife. This is absolutely insane, but Trump issued sanctions on the ICC and its officials, freezing their U.S. assets and barring them from entering the U.S. Biden reversed all of that. Number 10, lifting sanctions on Venezuela. Trump also imposed sanctions on Venezuela because of Nicolas Maduro's human rights violations. And then you had Biden come in and reversed all that. Opposing Israel at the United Nations. Trump defended Israel at the UN Security Council after Obama allowed an anti-Israel resolution to pass. And now Biden is back at it, copying Biden, threatening to withhold weapons from Israel. We saw Biden and his administration do that. And now even sanctioning Israel. Guys, we can't send mixed messages to our allies. We'll be back with more. This is Carl Jackson in for Jenna Ellis.
Hi friends, Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis Tonight, and we are experiencing instability at every level. Our government lacks leadership, and Bidenomics has been an utter disaster. The economy is in a fragile state. Inflation has been a constant issue. High interest rates have put significant pressure on the real estate market. There have been major bank failures, and many analysts say a stock market correction is likely overdue. We have global conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, and those have the potential to spread, but gold has soared to record highs even among the tensions. So there are so many reasons that Americans should consider wise investing, and investments in gold and silver, and Legacy Precious Metals is the gold standard. I love Legacy Precious Metals because of their zero hassle, education first approach. They can help you roll your traditional IRA into a gold IRA or ship metals directly to your house. Go to legacypminvestments.com, download the free investor guide, and I have read it. There is so much valuable information there. Friends, now is the time to not roll the dice on your hard-earned money. Find out about the growth potential that is in gold and that gold offers you. Contact Legacy Precious Metals and make sure to tell them that I sent you.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm your guest host, Carl Jackson, sitting in for Jenna. Right now, we are joined by Will Chamberlain. He's a senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. You can find them at article3project.org. Again, that is article3project.org. Will, welcome to Jenna Ellis Tonight.
Good to be with you.
All right, absolutely. So, Will, let's go through these cases that are basically, in my opinion, a persecution of former President Donald Trump. I don't know exactly where you stand on that. That's the way that I see it. I'm paying attention specifically to the first case, which has been brought, which I think is an absolute disaster, and that is this non-disclosure agreement case, or the hush money case involving Stormy Daniels. But Michael Cohen has proven to be a complete disaster for the prosecution, in my opinion. How do you see it?
I see it the same way. It's still conceivably possible that President Trump will be convicted by a jury of people who would do nothing but hate Trump. But if there's any fair-minded people on the jury, they're going to look at Michael Cohen and realize that there's no way they can believe what he says beyond a reasonable doubt. And Cohen's testimony is the only evidence that the prosecution has on a couple of key elements of the crime they want to prove. It's the only evidence they have of President Trump's intent. And again, what the prosecution is trying to claim here is that President Trump not only paid off this hush money and falsified business records, but that he did so with the intent to interfere with the 2016 election. And they don't have any record of President Trump saying that. The only thing they have to prove that point is Michael Cohen's testimony, but Cohen is almost certainly lying.
This is, I was reading a column from the New York Post, and it underlined four things that just basically outlines four ways in which Cohen was an absolute disaster. I mean, the guy admitted stealing from the Trump organization, which says to me, Will, that Trump wasn't fully knowledgeable of what Cohen was doing with the organization's money.
Right, and it also, contradicts Cohen's testimony in a number of other ways. So, Cohen said he insisted that President Trump was a micromanager and on top of everything. It's like, okay, well, if President Trump was such a micromanager, why would you dare trying to steal this money? You would know that your testimony says you were doing something criminal that you thought your boss would have caught you doing. People don't embezzle funds from micromanagers. That's not how embezzlement works. You embezzle funds, if you're going to do it, from people who are not paying attention.
That is such a great point. Also, Cohen admitted that he secretly recorded Trump. And that also appears to undermine his case, because apparently he was recording him because he wanted to show David Pecker of the National Enquirer that he had spoken to Trump, and that David Pecker would get his money or something like that. But even in the taping, I mean, it was clear that Trump didn't know what he was talking about, it seems like.
Right, and I mean, let's also take a step back for a second. What is Michael Cohen doing? He is, at the time, President Trump's attorney, and he's recording his client. And not only is he recording his client, later he is basically trying to provide this to the prosecution and then fundraise off of him now coming clean. And what he's really fundraising off of is breaching his duty of loyalty to his former client as an attorney. And I'm an attorney it's just absolutely appalling. I've said in a number of forums that I think Michael Cohen is the single most despicable figure in all of the Russiagate nonsense and in all of the lawfare against President Trump, because there is nothing worse and nothing lower than an attorney who sells his client's confidences.
Man, that is wow. That is a great point. All right, Cohen also admitted to the payment to Stormy Daniels was a legal contract. Again, I'm speaking to Will Chamberlain. He's a senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. Check him out at article3project.org. That is article3project.org. I'm still trying to figure out what this second charge may be. I can't believe that we have witnessed a trial of the former president of the United States over a non-disclosure agreement that you had Michael Cohen admit is basically a legal contract. So what's the second crime here, Will? I'm still confused, despite the fact that we've gone through a trial and we're waiting for a jury to deliberate.
I think the prosecution's theory, as I understand it, is that President Trump ordered for the falsification of business records in service of a kind of election interference. Like he was trying to hide the coming out of this affair from the broader public and thus meddle in the 2016 election. That's I think their theory. It doesn't work for a variety of reasons. One basic problem is that it's not clear that it could even possibly be a campaign finance donation that would be illegal, because President Trump, of course, is allowed to donate as much money as he wants to his own presidential campaign. So there's a lot of different independent problems with saying he did this in service of a different crime. And the judge has really glossed over all that, also by preventing the defense from bringing forward an expert witness to talk about what actually is a violation of federal election law. Now, it's understandable the judge, instinctually might want to do that, because in general, the judge is the expert on the law. But, he's judging an area of law that is well outside his ken. The jury has to make a decision about whether there's been an intent to violate that law. And then the big problem is he let non-experts like Michael Cohen testify about what constituted an election law violation. And Michael Cohen doesn't know the first thing about election law, and certainly not more than an expert in the area. So there's, that's just one of the many reversible errors committed by this judge.
All right, let me just if I could piggyback on that. We only have about a minute left. In the real world, would this judge be thrown off the case? Would a good judge dismiss this case right off the bat? I also want to get your response to, in just about 45 seconds here, this news that broke that literally there were basically shoot-to-kill orders when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. So 2 questions real quick, if you could.
All right. So, yes, the judge should have dismissed the case outright. Yes, the judge should have recused himself because he is financially conflicted, and Elise Stefanik just filed a complaint with the New York Judicial Commission about that. And on your final question, the shoot to kill stuff, I'm actually not super familiar with that, but I do know that when you're talking about raiding a former president's residence, there needs to be extra care in how you formulate those instructions to the FBI.
All right, Will Chamberlain of the Article 3 Project. Check them out, article3project.org. We'll be back with more on the other side. Carl Jackson in for Jenna Ellis.
Well, friends, you might have heard that Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way that they used to. They've been part of this cancel culture, so they want to pass along the savings directly to you by having a $25 extravaganza. I love that word, extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one-product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products, some you may not even know about. To get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out their $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows are just $25. MyPillow sandals, also awesome, only $25. Their 6-pack towel sets are $25. And brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, just $25. For the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, just $25. And orders over $75 will receive free shipping, too. This amazing offer won't last long. Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna, or call 800-564-8475 today. That's 800-564-8475, or go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Jenna.
All right, welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. Again, I'm your guest host, Carl Jackson, sitting in. And guys, I'm glad to be joined by Ryan Fournier. Ryan, you may have to help me with that last name. You can to pronounce it correctly, but you can find him online.
You got it right.
All right, did I? Good. All right. You can find them on. I'm a little ghetto fabulous, Ryan, so I'm really happy when I'm able to pronounce words like that. But you can find them online on X, actually, at Ryan A. Fournier. All right. So he is chair for Students for Trump, the executive director also of Radical Alert. And we're here to talk about Trump's campaign, election integrity, and actually, let's talk about Students for Trump. You're the executive, you're the executive director or chair for Students for Trump, Ryan. Do you believe that Trump is going to get more of the young vote, student vote? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are looking better now than they did in 2020 when it comes to young voters. I mean, I think everybody knows that the Democrats use the college campus as part of their roadmap to get to the White House. These carrot stick approaches where they, propose free health care, forgiving student loan debt. But I think everybody here knows that there's no such thing as eliminating student loan debt. There's only such a thing as transferring that debt from the student to the back of the American taxpayer. And that's what Biden's doing right now. He's trying to win those votes. We just saw this $7.7 billion handout this week where he's forgiving, I think, 167,000 borrowers. It's absolutely absurd. It's a ploy to win votes, but I do not think it's going to work because unlike someone like Bernie Sanders, who had energy behind him with young voters on the Democrat side, you just do not see that with Biden. We just saw that event yesterday, which looked more eerily like a funeral than a political event for a sitting president.
That was crazy. I think they said approximately 100 people were there, Ryan, and they had to spread the tables out to make sure that it looked like a full room. It was absolutely insane. There is no excitement for this guy, but I do wonder. I'm concerned about the get out the vote effort. I want to go back to this because I think what Democrats did in 2022. I know a lot of Republicans say it was abortion, 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 and to some degree, I do partially agree with that, but I believe it was abortion because what Democrats did was say abortion, 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 and they went to college campuses and then they collected ballots. And I'm like, where are the Republicans that are out collecting ballots? Are you seeing any improvement on that level when it comes to our college campuses?
Yeah, I mean, you see groups like Turning Point. They're doing that. When I talked to the president last year, we had a really nice phone call and a dinner subsequently after. And I told him, I said, we got to stop taking the high road. That's what conservatives loves to do. We love to just do the opposite of what the Democrats are doing because we don't want to get in the muddied waters like they do and what they're willing to do. So I told him, I said, why the hell aren't we doing ballot harvesting? Why aren't we doing the same thing that they're doing? And he said he agrees on the phone call that we should be focusing our efforts on that. So that's what Students for Trump has been involved with. That's what we're getting our volunteers involved with. I know Early Vote Action, Scott Pressler's movement, they're doing the same thing. They're registering voters. But I mean, what this comes down to, is really election integrity. Look at some of these states. You have 14 states where, they don't need ID whatsoever. You look at some of these states like North Carolina, Michigan, I think also California, where any type of ID is acceptable. You can literally go to a polling place with a student ID. Now, this doesn't determine. These things do not say, if you're a citizen or non-citizen, right? So you could go to any of these locations with a student ID, which, by the way, you can buy one off of Etsy. I just checked. You can get any university you want with your photo on it. And so anybody who's an illegal immigrant, you can just go obtain one of these things. Not to mention you have 19 states where you don't even, or illegal immigrants rather, can get a driver's license, right? So you have all these muddied waters across the United States where people can just go with a student ID and vote. You can have illegal immigrants with driver's licenses. No one's asking them if they're an illegal immigrant, if they're going to vote in a federal election. So you have a lot of issues that need to be fixed. And, Speaker Mike Johnson put that bill out the other day, or a few weeks ago, the SAVE Act, which I highly believe we need to pass. And if Trump gets back in, hopefully, God willing, we withhold federal funding from states that do not want to put voter ID laws on the books. We're having issues with that in North Carolina right now, where the RNC and the NC GOP is basically looking for a declaratory ruling because the North Carolina Board of Elections is basically saying anything goes in terms of voter ID. They're also telling people that send in the mail-in ballots, you don't even need to do it the proper way by putting it in the actual folder for it to be counted. You can just send in the ballot in an envelope. So we have a lot of issues that need to be fixed.
And it's amazing to me, Ryan. I'm glad that you bring up this issue because if you look at the polls and listen, let's be honest. You talk about the polls. The polls are really exciting. Battleground states that Trump is leading in all of them. It looks like he just overtook Biden in Wisconsin, but the polls the polls can be wrong. And what is going to matter is election integrity, and it's going to be Republicans showing up to vote. I'm really glad you brought up the issue of election integrity. I honestly, in California, when I was sitting in for the Officer Tatum, if I'm not mistaken, there was a caller that called in that was actually a poll worker, and he was like, there in some locations, IDs weren't needed. People could literally show up and just vote. You had no idea who they were.
Yeah, I mean, that's blanket across the United States. I mean, I think it's 18 states where you don't need any sort of acceptable ID form, and you don't know who's voting in these elections. I mean, look at the border. Over 7 million people have entered the country illegally. You don't know if they're on the terror watch list. They're just being catched and released into the country. They're ending up in places like Florida, California, New York. You don't know where they're coming from. And yeah, if nobody's checking IDs, if nobody's checking where your address is, anybody can vote in these elections. You could put down the homeless shelter as your address and then go vote in a federal election. I mean, we just saw this the other day in Texas where a judge just threw out the results of an election because it showed that there was like over 1,600 people who voted who were illegal immigrants. And I'm afraid to say that we're probably going to see that here in 24. And I'm glad that the RNC has hired on a plethora of attorneys to sort of come in and adjudicate this stuff because we're going to see it. It's not a matter of when, it's a matter, or it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we're going to see that happen. And I'm afraid of it, but it's going to happen, unfortunately, especially if we can't get the SAVE Act passed, especially if these state legislatures don't buckle down on what they want their elections to look like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Listen, Ryan, we only have 20 seconds. Real quick, what would you admonish viewers to do coming up for the election? How do they get involved? What do they need to do to win? 15 seconds.
Get involved with the campaign. Get involved with one of these third-party groups. Get out there. I know it's going to be a hot summer, but we need your support. We need your help. We need the young people. We need the old people. We need everybody from all ages getting out there, registering voters, ballot harvesting, and doing the work to make sure that Donald Trump is reelected. Don't pay attention to the polls. Don't get complacent.
All right. We appreciate you, man. We'll be back.
Hi friends, Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis Tonight, and we are experiencing instability at every level. Our government lacks leadership, and Bidenomics has been an utter disaster. The economy is in a fragile state. Inflation has been a constant issue. High interest rates have put significant pressure on the real estate market. There have been major bank failures, and many analysts say a stock market correction is likely overdue. We have global conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, and those have the potential to spread, but gold has soared to record highs even among the tensions. So there are so many reasons that Americans should consider wise investing, and investments in gold and silver, and Legacy Precious Metals is the gold standard. I love Legacy Precious Metals because of their zero hassle, education first approach. They can help you roll your traditional IRA into a gold IRA or ship metals directly to your house. Go to legacypminvestments.com, download the free investor guide, and I have read it. There is so much valuable information there. Friends, now is the time to not roll the dice on your hard-earned money. Find out about the growth potential that is in gold and that gold offers you. Contact Legacy Precious Metals and make sure to tell them that I sent you.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm joined by Jim Nelles, my next guest. He's a supply chain consultant. Man, they should have put you in place of Pete Buttigieg. And an economist. You can check out his work at the Washington Examiner and also check him out on Tipping Point on OAN on Friday evening. Well, I don't know if I should say that since we're on the Salem News Channel, Jim. But anyway, welcome to Jenna Ellis Tonight.
Hey, Carl. It's great to be back with you again.
Okay, so Jim, listen, I'm looking to this chart that my producer handed me, the change in household net worth since the start of Biden's presidency, and I don't believe the numbers are going to get any better, but the nominal value of people's income, has dropped exponentially under the Biden administration. It is absolutely insane. And I don't suspect that it's going to get any better heading into November.
No, it's not going to. And if you look at it, this proves the point. There are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics, right? And Joe Biden will tout the fact that on an aggregate basis, household income has gone up underneath his presidency. But when you adjust it for inflation, Americans are worse off than they were when he was put into office, and they are much worse off than they were under the Trump presidency. It's another example of why you can't pump trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy, pay people not to work, and then expect them to have a higher standard of living. We've seen that inflation is up over 20% since Biden's been in office. Food is up over 25%. People can no longer afford to buy a home. And if they can buy a home, they can't afford the insurance for the home because insurance has skyrocketed. So it's absolutely insane. Working Americans are getting killed. Young Americans are getting killed, Carl. This is the big secret that no one's really talking about, is that more and more young Americans are having to live in their mom's basement. And it's not because they're down there eating Cheetos and playing video games. It's because they have full-time jobs, but they can no longer afford to go get an apartment or go get a house.
You know, and I forget where I saw this, but I wanted to bring your attention to it, and now I can't even find it. But basically, it was a chart of how much the price of even fast food has skyrocketed since Biden has taken office. In some cases, whether it was Chick-fil-A, Burger King, I can't remember all of the places. I mean, some were 50% and above. I believe McDonald's was over 100% in price increases since Biden has taken over, Jim. And I gotta imagine. Listen, I'm not a poor guy. I'm not a rich guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm certainly not poor. And I got to tell you, literally once a week, I would pass by this Wendy's on my way out of the studio, and I would pick up the same meal every single time. It cost me right over $7. Literally, once Biden got elected, we were probably about a year in, I stopped by, and it was over $11. And I'm sitting here thinking, there's times where I'm like, should I get it? Nah, I don't want to spend that much. How much more are poor people facing this type of these decisions under Biden's administration?
Well, there was a study that came out late last year that said nearly 40% of Americans are skipping meals in order to pay their bills. That is absolutely insane. In America, 40% of people are skipping meals to pay their bills. If you look at what's happening right now, what stores are doing really, really well? Walmart and Target. You know why? Because people in your and my income bracket are trading down. We're no longer going to Nordstrom's. We're not going to Macy's. We're going to Target, and we're going to Walmart to buy what we need to do. And we're also seeing more and more of the working Americans having to go grocery shopping at places like Walmart because they can no longer afford to go to the big box stores that, say a Jewel or a Kroger or what have you, because those prices are just too outrageous for these guys. So we are seeing a drive towards value right now. The other thing that's very, very interesting right now, Carl, is that last month, credit card spending fell off of a cliff. And what that tells me is that Americans have finally said, I don't have any more money to spend. I can't afford to rack up any more debt. I can't afford to pay 28% interest when I buy groceries or when I pay for utilities with my credit card. So therefore, I'm just not going to pay. But we're also seeing more and more young Americans missing payments and falling behind on their payments because they cannot afford to buy the things that Joe Biden wants them to buy. I mean, think about this. When I used to fill up my F-150 under Trump, it was $50-$60. Under Biden, it's $120 to fill up my F-150. I don't want to pay $120 to fill up my F-150, but I am not going to go buy an electric vehicle under Joe Biden anyway. So you know what? Give me mean tweets and $1.50 gas, and I'll be with you all day long.
I'm with you. I happen to have a Toyota Tundra, so I'm absolutely with you on that front. All right, so a couple of headlines, and one that I want you that broke today. Yesterday. I want to get your quick response to, because I have a couple more questions that I want to ask you. But it appears as though the Biden administration are pulling the whoop-de-doo again, and that is Biden is going to release another 1 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And I'm sitting here thinking, Jim, well, if oil and gas is such a bad thing, why are you trying to release it before an election yet again to save people money?
He wants to do a temporary decrease in the cost of gas during the summer driving season. It won't work. And the other thing is, he has totally depleted our strategic oil reserve. They have not started to refill that, even when gas went down a little bit back a couple of months ago when it hit $60, $55 a barrel. Now we're kissing 80. So we've depleted our strategic reserves at a time when we have a war in Ukraine, we have a war in the Middle East, and we have a brewing war in Southeast Asia between China and Taiwan. And we don't have any strategic oil reserve because the president is draining it in order to take the price of gas down by 3 or 4 cents a gallon in order to try to get reelected. It's as stupid as what he does with these Hamasniks and supporting those guys with Hamas so that he can get a couple extra hundred votes in Dearborn, Michigan. It's stupid. It's pandering to the American people. But guess what? The informed voter won't care because they see through this ruse.
Man, I hope you're absolutely right. I spoke about that in my opening monologue, how this guy is inching us closer, in my opinion, to a war in the United States by some of his really dumb decisions to appease voters that really aren't going to make a big difference. All right, let me go on to this. We only have a minute left here, Jim. I'm speaking to Jim Nelles, supply chain consultant and economist. Check him out at Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com. New grads, here's a headline, new grads face cooling job market. I wonder if all of these people that were rioting on these college campuses are going to have a wake-up call when they look for a job and maybe consider voting for Trump in November. What do you think the odds are on that?
Well, I think it comes down to two sets of folks, right? You've got the one set of folks who went to Northeastern Southern State College, majored in gender studies, got a D- average, a lip ring and a neck tattoo, and now work as a barista, right? But then you have the other ones who actually went to school, studied hard, came out with really good grades, and they're graduating at a time like I did back in the early 90s when the economy is down and it's very, very hard to find a job. These folks are going to say, my parents were doing much better under Trump than they are under Biden, and I'm going to give Trump a chance. That's why Trump is winning the 21 to 39-year-olds right now. And he's also winning with...
We'll have to leave it there, Jim. Jim Nelles, we appreciate you coming on. We'll be back to close it out. Carl Jackson in for Jenna Ellis. Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. Again, I'm your guest host, Carl Jackson, sitting in for Jenna. I'm so thankful you could join us this evening. Please don't forget to subscribe to my podcast wherever you go to get your podcast, The Carl Jackson Show or Salem Podcast Network. Also, find me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show or at Carl Jackson Show. Either way, if you dial those in, you will find me, X, Instagram, Facebook, True Social Getter. Okay, guys, I want to talk about something that a lot of people aren't talking about nowadays, both on the left and the right, but I think it is so important to talk about because I am a small government conservative. I believe in a big God, and I believe in a small government. One of the reasons why we're in the predicament that we're in with the Biden administration, frankly, open borders, inflation, issues with our election where we're hoping that Republican attorneys will make sure that they're fighting back against the left and everything they're trying to do to rig elections into 2024. We can all look at President Biden and realize that this guy cannot win on his own. He cannot campaign. I'm doubtful that there will be debates, but maybe there will be. I'm just not sure how he'll get through them, even with the restrictions that they're putting on Donald Trump, the Biden administration, in those debates. But COVID, I want to talk about COVID because we've had some big news regarding COVID this week that I think is very important to talk about. And I think it's important specifically because I would like to say never again. This is something that we should never put up with again. Our bureaucracies should not have the power to tell us what to do. It is we, the people, not the bureaucracies ruling over the people. I do not want a fourth branch of government. And this is good news, by the way. It's one of the things that Trump says he intends to do. He intends to cut back on some of these fourth branches of government in the DOJ, FBI, so on, et cetera. And I look forward to that. But I think he needs to continue doing some amputations when it comes to the NIH, NIAID, the CDC. I think a lot of these institutions are simply duplicates, and they don't all need to be there. But one of the things that we found out is that we found out the truth about COVID. Now, I've been talking about this for quite some time, and I'm sure that any of you that have been listening to Jenna Ellis Tonight or listening to anyone on the Salem Media Network or the Salem Radio Network, you guys have been tuned into this, but it's really important that we don't forget about what the left did with the COVID lockdowns. Frankly, even what some rhinos did with the lockdowns. It's very important that we never find ourselves in that predicament, and we never tolerate that again, where they're telling us what type of chemicals we have to put into our bodies. But one of the news, some of the news that broke this is from the New York Post. We now know the likely truth about COVID and how scientists lied. All right, so there's several lies that I want to get to, but COVID-19, as you know, killed 1.1 million Americans approximately, but destroyed lives and livelihoods all across the nation and around the globe, millions more, as a matter of fact. And we now know that it was a man-made virus that escaped from the Chinese Wuhan lab, and it was funded by the U.S. government. Now, nobody wants to talk about that. I mean, I know that's really hard to hear, but it is the truth. This gain-of-function research that was funded by the EcoHealth Alliance, funded by the NIAID or the NIH under Fauci, under Francis Collins. That stuff came back to bite us in the butt in a big way, and now they're finally admitting it. One of the lies that they had to admit to recently, when I say they, I'm talking about Dr. Anthony Fauci's colleagues, was basically that COVID was not naturally occurring. So China tried to deflect blame immediately. They said the virus had begun in a wet market of animal meat in Wuhan. We know that isn't true. You had Dr. Anthony Fauci that argued that it evolved in nature and then jumped species in the spring of 2020. That wasn't true. Fauci has begrudgingly admitted that no, in fact, it didn't. It didn't start in nature. It didn't start in nature, but we had to go through some long investigations just to get that information. Another lie: the virus didn't come from the lab in Wuhan. Now, we know that isn't true. I've already addressed it, but we'll go through this again. So anyone who claims at this point, or anyone who did claim that we should check out the Wuhan lab back in 2020, they were silenced, they were censored, and the reason. It was a statement that was published in The Lancet by 27 scientists calling it a conspiracy theory to say that COVID began in the Wuhan lab. The problem was the statement was drafted by Peter Daszak, the president of EcoHealth Alliance, that was getting money for gain-of-function research, and he was trying to cover his own tracks. Lie number 3, the U.S. didn't fund gain-of-function. Now, scientists sometimes, as the New York Post points out, sometimes experiment with viruses, making them easier to catch or even more deadly as a way to determine what might happen or what vaccines may be needed. But this is absolutely insane. These guys went absolutely too far. You had the NIH Deputy Director Lawrence Tabak directly contradicted statements that Fauci stated unequivocally, or when Fauci stated unequivocally that the U.S. has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research. Just a complete and utter lie. This is, I mean, we're living in crazy times. And then I have this article. Bombshell messages reveal that Anthony Fauci's top advisor was bragging about making emails disappear. So Dr. David Moran's, he's a senior advisor, or was, to Dr. Anthony Fauci from 1998 until 2022. And some of the Moran's emails have been obtained by congressional subpoena, thank God. He said he deleted his communications to avoid turning them over to the public. I mean, some of the things that this guy said are absolutely scary. Again, this guy was a top advisor to Anthony Fauci, and he bragged about, quote, how to make emails disappear and deleting, quote, smoking guns, close quote, to avoid scrutiny, and lawmakers investigating the origins of COVID-19. I mean, he said, I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I am FOIA'd, but before the search starts. Morenz wrote this to Daszak. So I think we are all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail. Guys, do not trust these big institutions. We need to be small government conservatives, not big government conservatives. Otherwise, we're going to get ourselves in a heap of trouble. All of these fourth branches of government, whether it's the CDC, whether it's the DOJ, Trump needs to do an amputation on many of these industries or bureaucracies if he gets reelected. This is Carl Jackson sitting in for Jenna Ellis. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.